to you, recapping all but one game from Week 8, as we still have Monday Night Football between the Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which we'll recap tomorrow. But we do have some news tied to the Dolphins. We were just about to do a show, and then Adam Schefter tweeted a trade. So rather than goofing around, should we just get right into it, Daniel?
I think we do. Let's just get right into it.
Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the trade that just went down moments ago, Matthew. The Arizona Cardinals, who were down both Chase Edmonds and David Johnson. Edmonds left the game yesterday. Johnson was inactive. They play on Thursday night. Have acquired Kenyon Drake from the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a 2020 draft pick. Don't know specifically which pick it was, but the Dolphins...
A conditional 2020 draft pick.
Well, we don't know.
Right.
We don't know beyond what the conditions are that will lead it to be, for example, a fourth or a third round draft pick. But Miami parts ways with Drake, which was forecasted yesterday when he did not travel with the team to Pittsburgh for their game tonight. Your initial reaction to what it means for Kenyon Drake and the Cardinals?
Listen, I think it's an improvement for Kenyon Drake's fantasy value just because he's going to a better team. He's going to a better offense, and I don't think the Cardinals make this trade unless they have a real need. I mean, this is a team that is still rebuilding, that still, needs as many draft picks as it can get. So what this tells me is that either David Johnson or Chase Edmonds is a lot more hurt than we think. And my expectation is that significantly hurts one of their values, right? I mean, obviously I think the expectation, at least me, was thinking so Dave, I get it, Thursday night game, he's probably going to miss the next game, but David Johnson will probably be back after that. Maybe not. We just don't know. This is pure speculation. I've got no idea. So maybe either Chase Edmonds, who left yesterday's game with a hamstring injury field, or David Johnson, who's dealing with that ankle injury. Maybe one of them is much more hurt than we're aware of at the moment. So that's what that tells me. Because, they also, they signed Zach Zenner and Alfred Morris. So it was clear that they felt they had some running back depth issues. And so they add a valuable piece, a talented piece in Kenyon Drake.
Yep.
So number one is that, and if that's not the case, that it's more of a committee. David Johnson's still going to get all his, right?
Sure.
If David Johnson's there healthy. So it hurts, I think, Chase Edmonds the most of anyone. So let's talk about this in terms of Arizona. Having said that, the fact that he's a talented pass catcher is helpful, I think, to his fantasy value, right? Especially in this offense, because look at the upcoming schedule for the Arizona Cardinals, right?
I'm looking.
They play San Francisco this Thursday night.
Yep.
Then they're at Tampa Bay.
Brutal.
Remember, the Buccaneers allow a league low 68 rushing yards per game, under 3 yards per carry, just contained Derrick Henry. Then they've got a bye. I'm sorry, I take that back. Then they're at San Francisco again, and then a bye. That's their next 4 weeks. San Francisco, at Tampa Bay, at San Francisco again, then a bye week. You don't love any running back in that schedule for the next 4 weeks.
Doesn't matter if you're Kenyon Drake on 3 days of practice or if you're Christian McCaffrey.
Right, or David Johnson. Right, exactly. Huh?
You might love Christian McCaffrey. I'm correcting myself.
Yeah, I was going to say. But, so Kenyon Drake should get a significant workload on Thursday night because there's clearly a chance that Chase Edmonds misses this game, and we already know that David Johnson's expected to miss it. And so you've got some sort of three-headed committee of Zach Zenner, Kenyon Drake, and, of course, my boy, Alfred Morris. So that's my sort of takeaway is that it's an uptick in value for Kenyon Drake because he's going to a better offense. And that there should be, that at worst he's in a committee, which is what he was in Miami, but at least on an offense it's going to be more productive and more skilled and get him more pass catching. Having said that, I don't think it's as, I think we were looking at, could he go to Philadelphia? Could he go to Detroit? Were some of the other places that he'd been rumored to be going to where I think it would have been a real home run. And I think this is sort of a double.
It's really interesting because my initial reaction is a lot in line with what you said. So put fantasy aside just for a second here. The Arizona Cardinals are 3-4-1 now. 3-4-1, and they're staring down realistically, Matthew. And maybe the team is not, maybe their mindset is different. But they winning on Thursday night in your opinion?
I do not believe they will.
Right, so
against the San Francisco 49ers.
3-5-1. Probably 3-5-1, 9 games into the season.
Right.
Is that so? Would you make this move if you didn't have significant fears about David Johnson and Chase Edmonds? If he's back, let's just say either of them is expected back within 2 weeks. Does it seem logical that you would want to acquire? Put it this way: if David Johnson was expected back in 2 weeks, do you think you'd want to trade? I'm going to guess, and this is just a guess here, that it's a 4th-round pick that can become a 3rd-round pick based off maybe number of games played by Kenyon Drake or something along those lines. Would you want to trade a mid-round pick for a guy that is probably going to be your backup in a couple of weeks. Maybe it's a long-range play. Maybe the idea here is that we're signing him and then we're trading for him and we're going to extend him beyond this.
Look, here,
which is possible, but I mean,
entirely
also,
possible. I mean, ultimately, it's always hard to know kind of the mindset of football teams, and the way we look at it, and I think we look at it somewhat logically, may not be how a team is looking at it. Like, I mean, just completely aside for 1 second, somebody just tweeted, like, the Redskins are not being sellers at the trade deadline. They've been adamant about that. They're 1-7. They're an awful franchise. They have a bottom
exception.
But I'm just saying, like, there's an example of an NFL team that absolutely has a completely different evaluation of their roster than I think most other people observing it.
No question.
So the Cardinals may feel, you and I are like, look,
sometimes
you guys are probably 3-5. Best case scenario over the next 3 weeks is maybe you beat Tampa, but you're probably losing to San Francisco the next 3 weeks. So you're probably, at best, you're 4-6-1.
Correct.
Heading into your bye.
Right.
And so that's how we view it, but they may not view it that way. And also, by the way, it's still a team that has holes in terms of the depth of talent on that team. And so Kenyon Drake's a talented piece. And, I mean, I don't know. I agree with you. I think the flag, to me, this has to, there's like 3 pieces to this trade. There's if you have Kenyon Drake on your roster, there's if you have David Johnson on your roster, and then if you have Mark Walton on your roster and or available in your league.
Correct.
And so I think let's break that down 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
If you have David Johnson on your roster, this should be a red flag to you. We don't know anything beyond just we don't expect him to play Thursday.
Monday at 10:07 a.m., it's a red flag. No question about it. Maybe they tell us tomorrow he's fine. But right now, it's a red flag, no question.
It should be a red flag. Yep. And so if you have David Johnson on your team and you did not get Chase Edmonds or you don't have Kenyon Drake or whatever, like, you need to make plans, whatever you've been doing the last couple of weeks and thinking, like, I just got to get through the next 2 weeks. Like, you need to start making some alternative plans. Like, at least be prepared for be prepared for the possibility that David Johnson's going to miss significant time beyond just last week and Thursday night's game.
That's part 1.
Part 2. Part 2 is Kenyon Drake. Again, like, I think it's an uptick in value again because I think he's in line for potentially significant run here on a better offense than anybody was at. But I don't think Kenyon Drake is an every down back. I don't.
Hasn't been anywhere.
I was just going to say, wasn't at Alabama, wasn't at Miami under the previous regime, wasn't at Miami this year under Brian Flores and Chad O'Shea.
Yeah.
So he has never at any point in his career ever been an every down back.
Right.
So uptick in value, but not a significant uptick in value. But listen, if you've hung on to Kenyon Drake for this long, I think you're happy that he's just out of Miami and in an offense that's, even though the schedule upcoming is certainly not ideal, you could certainly see some dump off passes, and you feel better about Kenyon Drake today than you did yesterday as a member of the Miami Dolphins not traveling to Pittsburgh for the game tonight.
Yeah, so I agree on that. I agree on all of that, and I agree there's an opportunity at the very least for Kenyon Drake, because if you saw his snap percentage in Miami, it was tailing off significantly.
So now we move over to Miami field, and you're and you were the author of Free Agent Finds, available on ESPN.com. I think probably later today.
It'll be up later this afternoon. Just before the podcast, Mark Walton was a player we were discussing because at that point Kenyon Drake had not yet been traded. But my thought was, if you look over the past 5 weeks, I believe, and Kyle can stat check this if I'm off, but I know it's in the vicinity of being right, is that his snap percentage, Kenyon Drake's has been going down as Mark Walton's has been going up.
Yeah.
He is a former 4th-round pick out of Miami, went to the Bengals, was arrested multiple times during an offseason, and was cut. They had no choice.
Yes. He's had tremendous off-the-field issues, but
he's sometimes going home can be a dangerous thing. You're surrounded by too many people that are, can
bad influences.
Right, bad influences can make things worse. It seems like it's actually been the inverse impact so far for Mark Walton. Again, it's early, but he has, by all accounts, stayed on the straight and narrow and has a good opportunity here. Now, again, it's the Dolphins, and I can't really get comfortable with the idea of talking about Mike Gesicki as a tight end flyer and Devontae Parker as a wide receiver flyer, Preston Williams as a wide receiver flyer, and Mark Walton. But let's just go to all those players in composite and say this. Mark Walton, he probably has the best chance, or he has the only chance, at somewhere between 15 and 20 touches per game. I could see him being put it this way, I'd rather Mark Walton than any Lions running back right now, right? At least he should be the guy.
He should be the guy. The volume should be significant. And listen, we'll get a better look at him tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
And so that's the real key. Is just you can't do anything now anyway. Although actually you can. you know what? It depends on your roster, but there's a very good chance. What's Mark Walton's roster percentage? Someone look that up real quick.
It's low. I think it's 13%.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
you could grab him right now.
You could grab him right now.
You'd have to have somebody in your roster that's playing tonight. That
you'd have to have somebody on your roster that either is on a bye this week, so somebody on the Cowboys or the Ravens, or a player that's playing in tonight's game.
11.6%. I give you my blessing to drop Willie Snead, people.
There you go. But like I'll give you there's a chance. Like, it's all about roster construction, right? But there's a chance, right, that you have either won this game handily this week, or you've lost it significantly, and you're like, you know what, I've got Chris Boswell. I would drop Chris Boswell, take a 0 at my kicker tonight, pick up Mark Walton, and then next week reassess my roster and decide what I want to do at the kicker spot and blah, 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 blah. So that's stuff I do all the time, where I will drop a kicker, I'll drop a bench player that does not matter to me, and every once in a while I'll come back and bite you, but more often than not, the idea to be able to get a starting running back who has value in fantasy, even if it's the starting running back for the Dolphins, to get a starting running back in essence for free, right, before there's a rush to the waiver wire, because it's a fairly thin waiver wire. You were telling me as you were writing column.
It's bad. It's not. It's a tough time of the year because there are so many teams on a bye. But yes, it's a thin waiver wire column. I just said a moment ago that I would prefer Mark Walton, and you agree with this sentiment, than any Lions running back right now, because what we saw yesterday, Matthew, was ugly. We talked about Ty Johnson last week.
Yeah, we did.
You want to get mad at us? Go ahead. Get mad. I'll take it. We talked about Ty Johnson, and we simultaneously said, hey, he would seem to be the lead back on this roster. We also acknowledged there was a chance it would be a work share. We were 1 for 2. It was a work share. The problem was Ty Johnson was not the lead back for the Lions yesterday. Trey Carson actually got the early carries for this team and led the team with 12 carries for 34 yards. Johnson ends up with 7 rushes for 25 yards and 2 extra catches for 23 yards. Paul Perkins got 3 rushes for 4 yards. J.D. McKissic got a carry. Matthew, maybe what the bigger takeaway is, and by the way, keep an eye on the Lions as a potential running back trade destination later on today.
Yeah, but and by the way, just to further underscore the notes that you just mentioned, right? So Ty Johnson, 37% snap share.
Yep.
Trey Carson, 31%. J.D. McKissic, 26%. Like, it is a running back by committee, like, in every way, shape, or form. And by the way, it's a running back by committee that isn't particularly effective.
Right, they're 25th in yards per carry this season. They're 27th in yards per carry before first contact. Would you even want, I love Kerryon Johnson, but there are people that were frustrated with Kerryon Johnson prior to going on injured reserve. So I think as things currently stand right now, Matthew, going into week 9, you don't want to be starting any Lions running back. Now, again, if they trade for somebody later on today or by 4 p.m. tomorrow, perhaps the narrative changes. But maybe what we learned yesterday, Matthew, is that rather than rolling the dice with the Lions running back, it's just staying away, because more often than not, you're going to get what we saw yesterday, which was legitimately a 4-headed attack.
Less rushing attempts than the Arizona Cardinals, the Oakland Raiders, among others. They're in the bottom third in terms of rushing attempts so far this year. And they haven't been particularly effective. They're averaging 3.6 yards per carry so far this season. So, yeah, I mean, they're 25th in yards per carry. They're 27th in yards per carry before first contact. I agree with you. I think it is a stay away. It is unfortunate because I know a lot of people spent a lot of their fab budget or used a number 1 waiver pick on Ty Johnson.
Right.
And I would say that if I had to start a Lions running back, I think it's still Ty Johnson. Like, if I was forced, we got 4 teams on a bye next week, and they're pretty good offenses.
Yeah.
You prefer Trey Carson?
No, I prefer none of them.
I understand, but let's say if you had to.
Probably Trey Carson here's the hope. Trey Carson will be the guy that got the goal line carries. Daniel, they did not really have any goal line carries yesterday because Kenny Golladay had 2 big touchdowns. Yep. They had who else scored for them yesterday?
Ridiculous. I mean, they were like
Marvin Hall had a long touchdown pass.
And that long touchdown pass was great by Marvin Hall. Matthew Stafford is out there slinging it. This running game is absolutely a secondary part of the offense.
Just one last note about the Lions. I know Matthew wanted to bring this name up. Danny Amendola quietly back-to-back games with 8+ catches. Hard one for me here. And I just, because I take this stuff really seriously on the waiver wire column.
Sure. He's been a top 10 wide receiver the last 2 weeks.
Right.
8 for 95 and then 8 for 105 the week before. But you did not put him on the free agent finds column. Why?
There is, on the free agent finds column, like what I would love to have each week is 5 players that you got to add, right? The 5 players, right. If you're building a segment around them, you say, here are the guys you need to know, you need to add, you need to have on your roster. Danny Amendola's got 3 games with 7 or more catches this season. He's also got other games where he had 1 target and 0 catches. He's had other games where he has been at 3 catches or fewer, right? So he's been Jekyll or Hyde, right? And in a deeper league, yes. And again, there's a significant percentage of our leagues in ESPN.com where are just 10-team leagues. And you're not playing Danny Amendola in a 10-team league, right? And so I'm not trying to ignore the deeper leagues, but in deeper leagues, what you're choosing between is it's not just Danny Amendola you can make the case for. You can make the case for a bunch of players that have been like sneaky good over the past couple of weeks, right?
And candidly, depending on the depth of the league, like Danny Amendola is probably already rostered in a deeper league.
Yeah, he could very well be rostered. I mean, like 14 team.
So right, and we're
league.
In our War Room league, our 16-team War Room league. Danny Amendola was drafted.
Right.
I mean, so it's I understand
there are players like
that
Chris
weird.
Conley and Demaryius Thomas, Danny Amendola, like all of them.
We're going to get to those all
I know,
in a second.
but just along those lines, Matthew, like they're all kind of like he would be a something or nothing player that we'll talk about in just a minute here.
The only weird part for me about Amendola, which is sort of interesting, and Secret Scroll, feel free to weigh in here. That is, so Amendola has a big game this week, and so did Kenny Golladay. But Marvin Jones did nothing yesterday. And 2 weeks ago, Marvin Jones, 4 touchdowns, the monster game, of course.
Awesome. Yeah, of course.
But Golladay was, had disappeared, was like nowhere to be found 2 weeks ago. So it doesn't seem like this passing offense can support 3 viable fantasy wide receivers in a week. Again, it's 2 weeks, it's a small sample size. But hey, these are 2 games in which the Lions moved the ball effectively, where Matthew Stafford had big games where they were, to your point, slinging it. And so then if you sort of think of it that way, the Lions only are going to have 2 productive fantasy wide receivers in any given game. You'd rather bet on Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones in that order than Danny Amendola over either of them. But I think it's worth bringing up just because people see those numbers and they're like, again, the guy's been a top 10 wide receiver the last 2 weeks.
Speaking of, so he's been a top 10 player over the past couple of weeks, kind of one of those something or nothing type players, and we have him every single week, Matthew. So we're going to kind of give you the skinny on some guys that were surprise contributors yesterday and whether we're kind of buying it, and if so, what circumstances we will be buying it under. Back-to-back weeks now for Alex Erickson with at least 15 fantasy points. He is the Bengals wide receiver, for those who may not be familiar. 6 catches, 97 yards yesterday. He played 62% of the snaps in Week 8. He's a player the team has long valued. Now, that was before Zach Taylor got there, so but still, Zach Taylor has been utilizing him of late. Over the past couple of weeks, he's now up to 14 catches for 234 yards. Interested at all? I mean,
so they're on a bye next week.
They're on a bye.
We don't know that we don't know about AJ Green,
but he could return.
He could return.
Yep.
AJ Green could return.
Yep.
Andy Dalton threw the ball 52 times in this game.
He does that frequently now.
He does because they're absolutely so brutal. I mean, listen, and so you look there and you look at Auden Tate got 13 targets, Tyler Boyd got 9, Tyler Eifert got 9. He was actually 4th on the team in targets. He got 7 targets in this game here. So here's their schedule after the bye. Home to Baltimore, at Oakland, home to Pittsburgh, at the Jets. It's not a schedule that scares you.
Right.
I mean, so it's and certainly a schedule in which they should be down and throwing to all those teams except maybe the Jets. And so, sort of, like, I guess here's my point.
Yep.
I'm interested here's how I would answer it. I'm interested in the sense that if out of the bye week, we know AJ Green isn't coming back and I have a need at wide receiver, okay. But am I interested enough that I want to roster him and carry him through the bye when I've got 4 teams on a bye and there's a chance that you're going to be scrambling around because the teams on a bye this week, it's the Rams, it's the Bengals, it's 2 other really good teams. Who's
on a bye this week?
Yeah, on a bye.
Rams, Bengals, it's Falcons, who have obviously a lot of fantasy relevance. And somebody pull it up real quick before I sound like a big moron. Great podcasting here. Saints are on a bye this upcoming week.
So, I knew that.
Yes.
You're right. So, I mean, like, you're going to be without all the Rams guys, without Michael Thomas, without any of the other guys too. Why am I blanking on the
Rams, Saints, Falcons, Bengals?
Right, yes. Without Julio, without Calvin Ridley, et cetera, without Austin Hooper. So, like, you're going to there's a chance that you're going to need to fill in for at least one pass catcher. So I don't know that he's good enough that I feel like you need to grab him now to carry him through the bye, especially because we don't know the status of AJ Green. But if we're talking in 2 weeks, that's my sort of take on Alex Erickson. I would still rank them Boyd, Tate, Erickson if I was ranking the Bengals pass catchers at the moment for the rest of the season.
Only question I have with Tate is whether he is the one that gets squeezed upon A.J. Green's return. Just from a body type standpoint, he is the most comparable to A.J. Green. He seems to be running the most A.J. Green-like routes.
I'm sorry, who'd you say?
Auden Tate.
Auden Tate, yeah,
yes.
You're right.
So we'll see whether he gets
Daniel was
squeezed.
talking in my ear. He was yelling at me while you were talking. I couldn't listen to both of you at the same time.
Most people would choose me over Daniel. So
I agree. I agree. They make me wear this thing in my ear, and so Daniel can just yell at me about just random stuff. It's super weird because all he wanted to know was like, what are we doing on Friday? And so it's just like
that is weird.
It's like my wife. It's like just my wife will wake up in the middle of the night, will wake me up, and she goes, and I'm like, what? Is everything okay? She'll be like, I was just thinking, what do you want for dinner on Thursday? Like, it's Monday morning. Like, can we? Like, I was literally, does Chapin do that to you? Because Beth does that to me all the time.
Negative.
Like, she will interrupt me when I'm doing something, when I'm focused on something, to then ask me about something that is completely irrelevant at the moment, but it just popped into her mind. Does that no?
No, Chapin does not do that to me.
Wow.
She sleeps like a rock, though, so she's impressive.
Dude,
Demaryius Thomas had 5 catches.
I'm so jelly. You have no idea. All right, go ahead.
5 catches for 63 yards yesterday for Demaryius Thomas. He played over 60% of the snaps. He's now got 4 catches on average over the past 4 games. He's got over 40 receiving yards in 4 straight games. They're going to throw the ball a ton because they are very, very bad. They play the Dolphins, the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Bengals. We've been talking about some optimism for Sam Darnold over the next 6 weeks, Matthew. Demaryius Thomas kind of quietly sneaking onto that deep league flex radar.
And you think about their upcoming schedules you mentioned. So at Miami next week, and then home to the Giants, at my Redskins, home to Oakland, at Cincinnati. Like, it's a great schedule. It's one of the reasons why we've been saying, like, hey, Sam Darnold is a guy that we think is about to take off. One of the reasons why we've been talking up, Jamison Crowder and some of these other players. And we'll see if Robbie Anderson gets dealt. He's one of the names that's rumored to be on the move. And so certainly if that were to happen, Demaryius Thomas becomes very interesting. So, yeah, I'm open to it in a 12-team or deeper league as sort of a speculation play based on their upcoming schedule, his encouraging usage so far, and the fact that Robbie Anderson may move on. If Robbie Anderson doesn't get dealt, then maybe, I don't know, that I'm starting him except in like a 16-team, 14-team league.
Yeah.
But based on the speculation, I think it's worth taking a flyer in a deeper league.
Yesterday was an interesting one for Demaryius Thomas. He had 0 catches for a long time, and then he had 3 straight catches on 3 straight plays. So that certainly worked out. 5 for 63 in total. Chris Conley yesterday, Matthew, had 4 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown against those Jets in that same game. His highest, he had 75.7% of the snaps yesterday. That was the most amongst all Jaguars wide receivers. Now, the good news is Chris Conley contributed yesterday.
Yes, it is.
The question, though, Matthew, is do you really have a ton of faith given the fact that we like DJ Chark as a player?
We do.
We think, we've seen moments of brilliance from T.D. Westbrook, although he left that game
correct
with a neck issue.
And he left early.
Yes.
So, let's find out how hurt D.D. Westbrook is. At the moment, I'm saying no. But again, if D.D. Westbrook is going to miss some time, more banged up than we think, then yes. But look, he had a 70-yard touchdown. It was kind of a busted coverage, and he had a long touchdown. Otherwise, he was 3 for 33.
Yep.
And so this offense still wants to revolve around Leonard Fournette, and I don't know how. And we both are DJ Chark believers.
We are, yeah.
So, at best the number 2 pass catcher on an offense that we like, but we don't think is amazing. By the way, they're in London next week against the Texans. Then they're on a bye. At Indy, at Tennessee, home to Tampa Bay. It's actually not a bad schedule when you think about passing, right? Other than at Tennessee, you don't love the bye week and you don't love at the Titans, but you certainly love a home game with the Bucs. At Indy, there should be a lot of throwing, and the Texans certainly don't scare you, especially with a season-ending injury to J.J. Watt. Gardner Minshew should have some more time to throw. So yeah, I think for me, I'm ignoring it for now. But let's see how hurt D.D. Westbrook is, and then we can revisit Chris Conley.
Hunter Renfrow had 4 for 88 yesterday, plus a touchdown for the Raiders. 65 of those came on one play for a touchdown. Tyrell Williams returned yesterday. So, Matthew, he didn't have a game with more than 30 receiving yards or a touchdown this season prior to Week 8. Nice performance, encouraging. I'm glad to see that he made an impact yesterday, but probably a little bit too soon to Hunter Renfrow, right?
I agree that. Look, it was a weird game. They tried to get the ball to Darren Waller. They couldn't. He was clearly a priority for the Texans defense. They were really on him. But he had a 65-yard touchdown. Again, similar to Conley, had one long touchdown, which was great and got sprung, but the rest was 3 for 23, and that's what Hunter Renfrow is. And so I don't know. To me, here's a guy that prior to week 8 didn't have a game with more than 30 receiving yards or a touchdown. I love Hunter Renfrow as a player. And by the way, when I went to the NFLPA rookie premiere, and he's one of my favorite guys that I interviewed, just an awesome person. That's a guy that should be in broadcasting whenever his career is done because he's got an awesome personality. My favorite Hunter Renfrow story is he told me, half mockingly, half serious, is that he yelled at the NFLPA rookie premiere, and I wrote about this. All the players get their Madden ratings for the first time. And not surprisingly, and I talked to a couple of Madden ratings adjusters, they often hear from players who are upset with a rating. Like, come on, I'm a better catcher than that, or that kind of stuff, right? Pass catcher. And Hunter Renfrow made Madden history because he yelled at them because he thought his speed rating was too high. He's just like, I'm not that fast. You guys got me at an 85. Come on.
85, that's pretty impressive.
Exactly. He's just like, I'm not that fast. I want to sneak up on people. He tried to get them to lower his speed rating, and they wouldn't do it.
We'll have to raise the speed rating for Darius Slayton because this guy can absolutely fly for the New York Giants. Now, the good news is he had 50 yards and 2 touchdowns yesterday. The limiting factor is he had just 2 catches. He played a ton, though, yesterday, Matthew. 85% of the snaps in Week 8. Very fast. Has a very specific role in this offense. Sterling Shepard seems on track to possibly return on Monday night next week. So something or nothing here for Slayton.
I think it's nothing.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'll give you an example.
Yep.
In our 16-team War Room League, which is crazy deep, where like everyone with a pulse is rostered, and maybe I'm going to regret this, I had Darius Slayton, and I dropped him prior to this week's game to pick up Anthony Miller, who the last 2 weeks had 17 targets. He now has over 50 receiving yards in 3 straight games. He leads the team, or he's one of the team leaders, I think, in slot yards, right? And
slot targets.
Slot targets.
Yep.
Sorry, thanks.
And catches and yards. Yeah.
Yeah. And so feels like Anthony Miller, who's a second-year player that I like a lot, had a nice year last year. Feels like he's starting to come on, and I thought there was more upside in Anthony Miller than Darius Slayton because, again, Sterling Shepard should be back. And then you look at their upcoming schedule. Home to the Cowboys this week, at the Jets. You don't love the Cowboys game. You do like the Jets. Then they're on a bye. At Chicago, you don't like that. And then home to Green Bay, which I think the jury's still out on Green Bay. So in terms of their defense, it's certainly their secondary, which was a strength, and then it seems to have some leaks recently. But yes, with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram and Golden Tate, my thought was Darius Slayton at best is the 4th passing option. And honestly, when you think about how involved Barkley is, he's probably the 5th passing option when they're at full health. You don't love the schedule upcoming. It's a rookie quarterback who's had some nice moments here. But I think this is just one of those, he caught 2 balls for touchdowns, and he's a talented player. I would love to have Darius Slayton in a dynasty or keeper league because I think the future is bright for this young man. But in terms of this year, I think you ask me something or nothing, I say nothing.
I agree with you there. Fantasy Focus Football is brought to you by ADT. And what does real protection mean for our listeners? Well, you can get all the latest innovation in smart home security from ADT, combined with 24/7 monitoring from the most trusted name in home security. You get a team of professionals designing and installing a secure smart home just for you and your family. You get 18,000 employees safeguarding you with connection to first responders. You get the nation's #1 smart home security provider. You can get a secure smart home with everything from video doorbells, indoor and outdoor cameras, smart locks and lights, controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice. You can get professionally monitored carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. You get a system custom designed to fit your home. You can get safety on the go as well, whether you are in the car or when your kids are at school, with the ADT Go app with an SOS button. ADT keeps us safe. Continue to support ADT, friends of the podcast. Now, yesterday in the same game, we sort of had a breakout. David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears had a monster game, 27 carries for 135 yards plus a touchdown. He also added 4 catches for nearly 25 fantasy points. Melvin Gordon, meanwhile, and I know this sounds kind of pedestrian, hit 11.4 fantasy points because he actually found the end zone. Did either of these players turn the corner in your book, Matthew, or are you expecting this to look more like an outlier than a trend over the next 3 to 4 weeks?